I really hope that your listeners will give us a try. Send us an email until our new website is done at info@milesfranklin. I promise you, we will do the very, very, very best we can to give you the very best price in the United States. And we'll make it a great experience. We'll answer all your questions. And if your listeners find silver items listed less expensive from a major U.S. retailer, let us know. We'll match it. And in most cases, we'll already have beaten it. But in any case, it's my promise to you, to your listeners, and out of appreciation for being able to be part of what you're doing and be part of the team. And, I'm just excited to see where this takes us.
Hey, what's up, Silver Stackers? Thanks for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. We have a special guest, Andy Shectman, the CEO of Miles Franklin, with us. I think we're going to be doing a weekly little just, shoot the stuff, talk silver, and I'm excited. So, yeah, what's up, Andy? What's been going on?
Oh man, craziness, that's for sure. Good to be here and looking forward to doing this with you every week and getting a lay of the land and see what's happening in this crazy world we live in and how it all relates to metals and protecting one's assets. I don't think there's a better place to do it on the planet right now, and I think you would agree with me than the undervalued market that is silver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so talk to me. I made a video about 4 or 5 days ago about Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, and how he was talking about silver. And what's up with him and you? What are you doing?
I'll be on his show tomorrow. I've never met the guy.
That's
I did an interview with a guy named Jay Martin, and I've been talking about something for the last 2 years. And it's been really, if you go back and listen to the things that I've been saying, it's been on every single video I've done, 1,000 of them probably. The central theme of what I've been talking about is global de-dollarization, a coalition of most of the world, the BRICS nations, and all of the countries that are joining the BRICS nations and the Belt Road Initiative, which is the largest infrastructure project in human history that's underway in China. All of it is encapsulating roughly 90% of human population, and all of it is void of the West participation, and in particular the dollar, and the ramifications that that will have. And I think it's growing with intensity, severity, and concern every single day. And in talking about this, I think I rattled his cage a little bit. He said that he's never his I took his paranoia level to a new level, that he's listened to it now 4 times and made everyone in his office, industry or company wide, listen to it. I don't know that I've ever been so honored. And then he asked me to come on his show tomorrow. He did it again last night on an interview on Kitco News on YouTube. Mentioned my name again at the 11-minute mark, at the 36-minute mark. It's I don't know. It's really kind of a trip, to be honest with you. I read his book when I was, I don't know, 25 years ago. I read his book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I don't know. Look, I think that I've been surprised that no one's been talking about this. I think it's huge. I think that the fate of this country and of our economy and the world that our children will grow up in will be dominated by what's happening in the BRICS nations, and they are all coalescing against the Western hegemony, and they are moving at breakneck speed. And when we kick Russia out of SWIFT, when we weaponize the dollar, I would submit to you that, hey, when you are the controller of the world reserve currency, it is not your job to say who can and who can't use it. It should be for public opinion,
right.
worldwide public opinion. But by weaponizing it the way we did, we've incentivized all of the world, and in particular these BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa, and all of the countries that are now joining it, which are several, including Argentina, including Venezuela, including Egypt, including Turkey, including Saudi Arabia, Iran. They're all joining, and I'll talk about that Saudi Arabia situation in a moment. But they are all coalescing against the Western hegemony, against, in their mind, the Western hypocrisy. And when you look at weaponizing the dollar and kicking Russia out of SWIFT, this is probably why China has sold 130, 140 billion of our treasuries now, going on 7 months in a row. They have been selling our treasuries. And so you're looking at a situation where the rest of the world is saying, hey, are we next? Are we going to be sanctioned? Are we going to be kicked out of SWIFT? Are our assets going to be frozen? And they are using that as a rallying cry to coalesce what is 90% of human population against the West and against the Western hegemony. And the most troubling part of it all is the fact that Saudi Arabia has just came out and said they're going to join the BRICS nations. The BRICS nations said we are going to issue a new world reserve currency. Now, this is all within the last month. See, most people don't understand what makes the dollar the world reserve currency. And that is really the crux of all of this, is that it is the protection of the Saudi kingdom. It is the protection of the Saudi kingdom since 1974 that has made the dollar the world reserve currency. They promised that they, through OPEC, would denominate oil globally in US dollars for the protection. And it's been that way my whole life, your whole life, all of our lives, or at least anyone who's been born in the 70s or after. The dollar has been the world reserve currency because of its petrol status, because of the protection of the Saudi kingdom. When you see Saudi Arabia strike a joint military cooperation agreement with Russia the day we leave Afghanistan, Nigeria, the fourth or fifth largest OPEC producing country in the world, 2 days later doing the exact same thing. When you see these countries now selling their oil for the first time since 74 to China for a yuan denominated bond that is immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. You want to know how Iran escaped sanctions? That's how. They sell their oil to China for a bond denominated in yuan that is immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange in the kilo bars, and they take possession of it. Well, that's what Nigeria and Saudi Arabia are doing now as well. When you see Saudi Arabia say we're going to join the BRICS nations, when you see the BRICS nations say we're going to issue a world reserve currency, you have to ask yourself this one question. Was Klaus Schwab that far off or not? Klaus Schwab said there'll be a great reset. How do you get a great reset? Well, you weaponize the dollar after you blow up the value of it to all-time highs, where all of that money has found its way into asset prices, stocks, bonds, real estate, cryptocurrency. These things have been blown up to umpteen, literally the highest level they've ever been, ever in all of these markets, most of it at the lowest interest rates in human history. These assets are all inversely correlated to a rise in interest rates. So when Fed Chairman Powell says, hey, I'm going to get tough on inflation, and pussyfoots around by raising the federal funds rate to 2.25%, with inflation at 8.5% or 9%, which is massively understated, massively. The real level of inflation is closer to 18%, according to John Williams of Shadow Stats. All he does is calculate it the way it used to be calculated before the government pulled out of the metric food, energy, and housing. Because obviously we don't have to eat, we don't have to cool our house or drive anywhere, and we don't have to live in a house. We can live in a teepee and heat ourselves and heat with wood that we gather in the woods and forage for food, because none of this is calculated in the CPI. So anyways, when you have a 2.25% interest rate on the federal funds rate with 8 to 9% inflation, which is half understated, we're not getting tough on inflation. And Powell knows that if, in order to really get tough on inflation, like Paul Volcker did in 1980, when he raised the federal funds rate to 19.75%, crushing inflation, also crushing the economy, he knows, Powell does, that if he raises rates high enough, that he'll blow up the entire system. Stocks, bonds, and real estate will collapse. And he doesn't want to be written about in history books. So the villain that we have created by weaponizing the dollar and pushing Russia into the open arms of China and their SIPS system, which is the cross interbank payment system, and the rest of the BRICS nations who are admittingly coalescing against the West, it would be this simple. Saudi Arabia joins the BRICS. Keep in mind that when we talk about the Belt Road Initiative, I don't know how much you've talked about that on your channel, But this is the largest infrastructure in human history, infrastructure project. Every one of the BRICS, or every one of the OPEC producing countries, 13 of them, are on the Belt Road Initiative. 6 of them are in the BRICS nations or have applied to join the BRICS nations. The 7th, the United Arab Emirates, just joined the BRICS Bank. You are seeing a massive push away from the West. When our president, who doesn't even have the courage to go to Texas and see the immigrant problem, goes to Saudi Arabia to beg for oil, I would say he's not begging for oil. He's telling us we're going completely battery powered, moving away from the combustion engine in the next 20 or 30 years. Heck, California says in the next 10, they're going to be completely battery powered. We're destroying the Saudis' way of life. What he went there to do is to beg them not to leave, not to abandon the dollar as world reserve and not to join the BRICS, because this is how fragile it is. And this is what freaked Robert out, is that all it would take, and you could see this, all of these countries standing on a stage, their leaders in China, arm in arm, and they say, OPEC says, hey, thanks for the memories, West. It's been great. But we've decided now that we're joining our brothers and sisters in the BRICS nations, that we're going to sell oil through OPEC in other currencies, not just the dollar. We're going to do yuan, ruble, rupee, gold, euro, yen, and dollars. Like that. It's over. The dollars come flooding home, as every country on the planet since 1974 has had to own them to buy oil. This synthetic demand that has been created by all of these countries having to own dollars in order to fuel their country is over. And they can buy other currencies maybe even their own. And when those dollars come flooding home, it creates massive inflation, maybe hyperinflation. And what is the byproduct of inflation? Higher interest rates, because you must have higher interest rates to compensate for the decrease in purchasing power found in an inflationary environment. But how about a hyperinflationary environment where 90% of humanity starts to dump dollars? And one would beget the other. He's selling, he's selling, he's selling, he's selling, he's selling. Everyone sell, sell, Mortimer, sell. Everyone dump it, dump it, dump it, because the dollar is collapsing. When the dollar collapses and interest rates spike, what is inversely correlated to that? Stocks, bonds, and real estate. You want to hear how quickly the Great Reset happens? OPEC makes that announcement, being protected by the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa, and the myriad of other countries that have joined it, whose military might combined to ours would squash us. In and of themselves, it wouldn't. But the fallacy of composition says, well, yeah, each individual part by itself can't, but put together, they're a hell of a formidable foe, militarily, economically. And they are all the countries that produce the world's commodities. The RICS and BRICS, Russia, China, India, South Africa, the largest producers of precious metals in the world. Russia, the second largest producer of oil, the largest producer of natural gas, the largest producer of fertilizer. Saudi Arabia and the OPEC countries, all the oil. You see where I'm going with this. It is a system coalescing against the Western hypocrisy, against the Western hegemony, all of it settled upon currency that will be backed by commodities. I do believe that what will happen is that the new digital yuan that the Chinese have beta tested for 3 years to the tune of 20 billion in successful transactions, starting on the Belt Road Initiative, where all of the contracts are settling in the new digital yuan, to the Winter Olympics, where if you didn't have a smartphone, you didn't eat and you didn't get into the Olympics. Everything was QR code for the digital yuan. It's happening. And I think they will take that technology and it will be the rails to which the new BRICS currency, which they just came out and said they are going to issue, they just came out and said it will be backed by or based upon a series of commodities, not currencies, but commodities. And they will use the distributed ledger technology of the new digital yuan to show the world the veracity and the immutability of the commodities underpinning the new BRICS currency. When all of those dollars come home and you get hyperinflation, stocks, bonds, real estate all instantly collapse, instantly vaporize in a massive spike in interest rates. You have a great reset. Dollars, stocks, bonds, reset, bang. and real estate all collapse. And now you have a villain. And it's not Powell and the Fed who screwed the pooch for everybody.
Right.
It's those sons of bitches in the BRICS nations and Putin and Xi and OPEC. They did this to us. No, we did this to us. The Fed
Right.
did this to us. And that's what I was saying. And that's what really freaked Robert out. And I'll tell you something, honestly. I have given this talk for the last 2 years. I gave it at Rick Rule's symposium, and I got up on stage and I said, I welcome anyone to poke a hole in this. I have yet to find anyone who will poke a hole in what I am talking about, and it's happening, and it's happening more and more and more. I want to read to you one quick thing, and then I'll answer any questions that you have. There was an article that just came out the other day, and it was written by a man named Sergei Glaziev, and I'm probably butchering the last name, but he is the Russian minister in charge of integration and macroeconomics of the Eurasian Economic Union and the leading strategist behind the Eurasian Economic Union China Commission for a New Financial Architecture. Eurasian being Europe and Asia and Russia and all of these countries that are joining, coalescing away from the dollar. He says, Glaziev laid out the fundamental principles upon which the new post-US dollar economic system will be based. Although some common unit will be agreed upon, it will not be based upon any particular currency as with the Bretton Woods order, that's the US dollar, but rather a market basket of currencies tied more deeply to an array of commodities such as gold and silver. So you're going to see, I believe, all of these nations peg commodities from oil to gold and everything in between to the new system, and all of it denoted on a distributed ledger that the Chinese have beta tested successfully for over 3 years. And that's what freaked them out. And there's your great reset, and there's your villain. And it's as fragile of a system as OPEC saying, get lost, US. We've had it with you. We're moving on, and we're being protected by other countries right now. So yeah, I think it's real. I think it can happen, and I think it's progressing. This article just came out the other day, and I think it's happening really in double speed right now, and that's where I am focusing on right now.
I'm glad you talked deeper into that, because when we talked last time, a lot of people were interested in that part. So what I did was I cut a snippet out of just you mentioning that part of the interview and made a separate video. And a lot of people were saying they've watched it several times. My moderator is very, very interested in it. He actually picked something out of it and was talking about investing into or starting to stack American-made silver. What do you think about that? And in terms of American-made silver, does that mean just minted from the U.S. Mint or Sunshine Mint, since U.S. Mint gets their silver from there? Like, what would you what would your advice be on moving forwards with silver?
Well, I think a lot of people talk about that with me because the order that I did with the large order I did for $50 million, the client only wanted American-made coins. And they did that because they believe that if gold and silver are confiscated, that American coins will be left off the chopping block. I don't think that would exclude Sunshine Mint rounds that happen to be made in the U.S. I think what it's talking about is legal tender coins issued by the U.S. Mint or the U.S. Treasury. The Treasury made all of the dimes and quarters and half dollars that are legal tender. The U.S. Mint, which is part of the U.S. Treasury, makes the Silver Eagle, the Gold Eagle, etc. And so, look, I'm a U.S. Mint representative. I'm one of only 27 authorized resellers in the world. Probably my greatest achievement in 33 years, something I am supremely proud of. I love the U.S. Mint. I love their products, but their prices absolutely suck right now. And to buy Silver Eagles is foolhardy. To pay $13 premiums for Silver Eagles when you can buy any of the other sovereign mint coins for $7 to $8 less, when you can buy kilo bars, 10-ounce bars, or generic rounds for much less than that, I think it's a mistake. I think in the end, it's about the number of ounces that matter without being penny wise and pound foolish. I think you're better off having 1,000 1-ounce rounds than a 1,000-ounce bar, because whether you're whether you're playing poker with your buddies or driving on a crowded highway or just living, you can never have too many outs or too many exits or too many options. And so I think that, buying American coins always would have been my go-to. But over the last, since COVID, really, since February 2020, you haven't been able to buy a Silver Eagle for under $10 over spot. And I'm buying them back from the public right now at $10 over spot. I mean, it's a situation where I've never seen anything like it. And I would tell people, even if I'm buying it for myself, I'm not buying them. I sent you some of the specials that we're running. The 10-ounce Valcambi bar, I'll be less expensive than anyone in America on them. The Britannia, less expensive than anyone in America on them. And in both cases, you're as much as $9, $10 cheaper, $8 to $10 cheaper than the American Eagle. So I think you would lose too much silver converting to American
Oh
coin.
yeah.
And even the junk silver. They say there's no bull market like a metals bull market because it's motivated by people's concern. They're not in it to make money. And if you are in it to make money, you're missing the point. Even though you may, I think you buy it with the focus of return of your money being more important right now than return on it. Well, emblematic of that is the pre-65 constitutional dime quarters, half dollars. Used to be called junk silver. I don't call it that anymore. It's the second most expensive form of silver we sell. It's gotten very hard to get. No one wants to sell it, and it hasn't been produced in almost 60 years. So it's very difficult to come by. So even buying the junk silver coins or the pre-65 dimes, quarters, and half dollars, American minted, made by the Treasury, would be too expensive. You would lose too much in the way of ounces, and I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, I tell people converting it, and like my moderator, I was like, if you convert it, you're gonna lose half, maybe more your stack. I think moving forwards, if you could find like a call eagle from your local coin shop or something, then go for it. It doesn't always have to be brilliant uncirculated eagles, from some online site. But mentioning real quick, those deals you brought up, if any of you do want to purchase from Andy Shectman, Miles Franklin, just send them an email at info@milesfranklin.com. Let them know Silver Slayer sent you. I know Andy would be happy to hear it. I know you said the website's going to be up soon.
Yes,
as well.
It's been the most frustrating thing I've ever dealt with in my career. We had to switch developers midstream. I met with the developers here today. We're 97% of the way there. It's really close. I just don't want to open something up.
Oh yeah.
At the right way. In the meantime, yeah, send us an email, info@milesfranklin. Ask for a current price list. If you find something cheaper elsewhere from a major competitor, show me. More often than not, we're the most competitive in America. We're the only licensed and bonded major company in America that I know of. There might be another one, but the reason I left my corporate office in Minnesota is because it's the only state in America that mandates licensing and bonding. And even though I moved to Florida last year, where I have a satellite office and I've had it for a decade, I left my corporate office there because we're held to a higher standard. We're licensed, we're bonded, we're background checked. Almost every company in America has boycotted the state of Minnesota because of the fact that it's the only state in the entire country where this is the case. The rest of the country, you don't have to do that. And so to go through continuing education, annualized background checks of everyone in the company, myself included, and to pay money and provide a financial statement backing a surety bond is enough to make every one of these online companies say, screw Minnesota, I'll work everywhere else. Well, we embrace it. Yeah, it's onerous. Yeah, it kind of sucks to go through it every year, but we are the safest company in America to work with, and you'll find that our prices will be as good or better than anyone in America. And I am very appreciative of our newfound relationship. I want to earn your clients or your listeners' business. So yes, send us an email, info@milesfranklin. We'll send you a price list. We'll answer any questions. And then we'll have a new website for everyone here real soon that will allow them to go to something along the lines of milesfranklin.com/Silver Slayer that will allow them to access specials and whatnot and be much easier for people. But in the meantime,
it's just, yeah, it's still, yeah, exactly. That's what I was letting people know. This is a very respected company. Never had a negative complaint. What, 45 years?
33 years. Yeah.
Same difference. But yeah, I mean, it's not like just some random person. You're talking about very respected company. So if anything, and if anything went wrong, or you want to get in contact with Andy, I can put you through right to him, or he'll handle it himself instead of, there's been instances where, I've been, hey, Andy, can I just direct you or have him email you directly? And Andy's like, sure, give him my email. So it's a wonderful experience, especially to get to a direct source. Like if one of my subscribers builds a relationship with you compared to some online dealer where they don't know who's filling the order behind the screen, I mean, weigh out the pros and cons. It's a no-brainer to build a relationship with someone like you. And for me to offer that to my viewers, I think is pretty cool as well.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I think where we're heading, relationships will be very important. I think we're heading to a period of time where, you never realize how important a relationship is until there is a problem. And that's something that we're very good at doing, problem resolution. Look, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't screwed up. I have. Everyone screws up. But I think you're defined as a person and as a company by the way that you deal with that. We accept responsibility, take accountability, and then make it right. And that's something I will promise everyone out there. Yeah, I may not always do everything correct, but I'll be the first one to make it right if that's the case.
So we were talking about the U.S. Mint. So I've personally dug pretty deep. I got a lot of my information from a man named Patrick Heller. I don't know if you know him. He's certified. I mean, what he's done for the precious metals communities. I mean, regardless, though, what he was saying in his couple of articles, he made 2 different articles explaining the U.S. Mint, what's going on, and from what I'm aware, the U.S. Mint cannot pay above spot. The secretary shall not pay above whatever the LBMA spot price is, while other mints can. So the U.S. Mint gets most of their silver their silver planches from Sunshine Mint, but Sunshine Mint can sell above spot, so nobody wants to sell to the U.S. Mint because U.S. Mint can only pay spot. So they're going to have a lot harder of a time getting silver. And since they outsourced their silver, well, they started that when they were producing 30-40 million. They said, let's outsource it because it's too hard to make it in. So now all of their silvers outsourced, they're cut off, and to start in-house production again it'd be too costly. Plus, on top of that, then you have to go into what's going on with Eagles. Eagles are in a completely different category of premiums. I would say, and this is the thing, they say, why can't the U.S. Mint just change the law? Well, the government's trying to hold down interest rates on our own $30 trillion of debt. So that's what Patrick was saying is, until that gets fixed, which he doesn't see that happening, the U.S. Mint's going to continue having difficulty. Then there was a congressional complaint last week posted. So I've heard people. Yeah, so it's such a messy situation that I don't see how the U.S. Mint is going to be able to get out of this. I mean, they sold 5 million ounces the first month of January, and then by June they sold 56,000 ounces the entire month. Where now you see Perth Mint, the Royal Mint getting selling 2.5 million ounces in June. Seems like people are starting to turn their backs because of the premiums.
Well, it's interesting too that the Sunshine Mint provides the blanks for many of the other sovereign mints. I'm not positive which ones, but I want to say the Perth Mint and the Rand Mint, they make the blanks for them too. They pay over spot, yet their coins are priced $6 or $7 or $8 or $9 less than the American Eagle. Something is wrong here in a big way. Not only that, there was a law that was passed that said that the mint's obligation is to deliver as many silver eagles. It's part of the law that the charter that was put into place when the mint was founded in '86, that they have to, by law, issue as many silver eagles as is demanded by the public. The premiums are out of control and they're very inefficient. Either that, or they're purposely being told not to release the metal to the public. Even more concerning, if you look at the business that this entire industry has done since 2020, 90% of it or greater is in silver. And, we had record years, 2 years in a row, all of it 90+%, 95% in silver. Yeah, you get some large orders where people will buy gold, but most people are buying silver. And yet the mint called us a few weeks ago. Remember, we're U.S. Mint authorized sellers, and they said, "Hey, Andy, we're curtailing production of all gold eagles by 50% into the second half of the year." So what the hell are they doing that for when the demand
gold
for silver? Yeah, right. And so, it's as if, there's a fine line these days between conspiracy and reality. But let's talk about something that even makes it crazier right now. I've been doing this for a very long time, 33 years. And I've watched the commercial banks on the COMEX market the entire time. And they're the ones that have been suppressing the price of gold and silver forever. And they do it for a myriad of reasons, maybe even at the behest of the U.S. government. Heck, J.P. Morgan is right. They pay
$900 million.
And their head trader, Michael Nowak, was amongst 3 traders that just pled guilty to manipulation.
Went to prison. A 4th for racketeering. Right. I've covered that a lot.
So it's real, right? So the commercial banks are always the ones that are short. And when the nickel market failed in London in March, the London Metals Exchange, which is a 140-year-old exchange, invalidated that trade. Now, if you're a client of a broker and that client can't make good on a trade that blows up in his face, it is the broker's responsibility to make the exchange whole. If the exchange can't make, or if the broker can't make it whole, it's the exchange's responsibility to make that trade whole so that whoever took the other side of that trade doesn't get screwed, and it maintains the integrity of the exchange. For the first time in the 140-year history of that exchange, the London Metals Exchange invalidated that trade. And that is a problem. And I think what happened was, they bailed out this Chinese businessman and they screwed everyone else who took the other side of the trade. But I really do believe that they looked at the commercial banks at that moment and said, get your house in order now, because the short position in silver, the concentrated short position in both gold and silver, was many times the magnitude of the silver position. From that day, I believe they have driven down, the commercial banks stepped on the price hard in March and created capitulation by the managed money, where the managed money who has were thinking to themselves, why would we continue to do this? We have 30-year high inflation, there's a war, everything's screwed up with the economy, and yet they smash it again. We're out. So the managed money was record long at that point. They dumped everything. And then they actually have gone record short. Now, they've done the dirty work for the commercial banks. Who takes the other side of the trade when the managed money sells longs and goes short? Commercial banks buy those longs, and when they go short, the commercial banks go long. So the commercial banks have incentivized that managed money to drive the price down from where it was to where it is now. Huge drop from $30 nearly, or wherever it was, close to whatever the price was to where it is now. It's dropped considerably, 40%. And I think they hoodwinked the managed money into doing this, because for the very first time in my entire career, the managed money is record short, and the commercial banks, for the first time ever, are long in COMEX silver by 5,100 contracts last time I looked, over 25 million ounces.
I made a video about that yesterday.
They have flip-flopped, and they are in position really to watch the price skyrocket. Not only that, over the past 4 months, you've seen record withdrawals off the COMEX, off the LME, 100 million ounces backdoored out of SLV by the authorized participants in the last 4 months, and record withdrawals off the Shanghai Gold Exchange. You're seeing massive withdrawals of physical metal right now, and possession being taken by whoever is draining the market. So you have the most sophisticated, well-funded, well-informed investors on the planet draining the exchanges of metal and going long in COMEX silver. The other side of that trade are the dumb managed money who's going to get squashed. I don't know if I've ever seen a more bullish backdrop for for or argument for buying silver ever than what we have right now, ever.
Yeah. Wow. So, Patrick Heller mentioned the COMEX and going along with the shortage of the Eagles. I wanted to read this part because he even mentions uh, the nickel exchange. So he's talking about the four options U.S. Mint has, and he's talking about the fourth one being the COMEX, which is they allow mature contracts called for delivery underlying physical commodity be settled by one of four different options: delivery of the physical commodity, cash payment, shares in an ETF, or exchange for physical. And then he goes into the exchange for physical. He says, however, it appears most settlements in the silver market over the past several years have been exchanged for physical. In other words, those hoping to obtain physical silver at spot by purchasing a commodity contract and holding it to maturity either will A, never get the physical metal, or only receive it much longer in the future than the maturity date of the contract. It's also possible that a commodity market could get so out of order with insufficient metal to deliver against demands for physical, as demonstrated by the nickel commodity market over the past few weeks, which this was written last year, that the entire commodity exchange for that commodity could freeze or even collapse. So when
Look at it this way, and to his point, and that's dead on to his point. Right now, there is, if you look at the open interest on COMEX, those contracts that could stand delivery, it is now equal to 1,500% of registered silver. In other words, it is rehypothecated. The silver bars in the vault, rehypothecated, there is 1,500% more contracts than there is bars in the exchange. That's exactly what he's saying. If they all stand for delivery, everyone gets screwed, but one out of 1,500%.
Wow, man, this is. And it's crazy that, and I was saying this actually, like, there's a reason why my name is Silver Slayer, not Gold Slayer, right? There's a reason why there's such a big silver stacking community on YouTube, not so much gold. That's why it's called Wall Street Silver, not Wall Street Gold. There's reasons for this stuff, and I really do see, and actually the guy the email is talking about, the guy yesterday talking about the LME, says he has a friend in there talking about buy silver before winter because of the energy crisis coming up. And he gave me this whole thing about the energy crisis leading into winter. There's the productions or mining is going to get cut down and yada, 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 and why we need to get silver now heading into winter where the price could skyrocket, which is interesting because usually, around the holidays, that's bearish for precious metals. What do you think about that the whole thing with the energy crisis, moving into the end of the year?
Look, I think there are a lot of reasons to buy it. That's just one of them. And I think things are accelerating. I think you're doing an amazing job at waking people up. I think if you're not understanding the significance of protecting yourself with something like silver, which is the most undervalued asset on the planet, in an environment that we face right now where things are changing massively, yeah, I mean, that might be whatever the straw that breaks the camel's back. And I think one of the unusual things, or one of the constant themes that I've witnessed over all of the years that I've done this is that there's always something that triggers the inevitable, the mathematical inevitable, and maybe it is the half of the continent of Europe freezing their ass off when they don't get any natural gas from Russia. Maybe it's something else. I don't know, but I think I know who I know the gentleman that you're talking about. I've read him before, and he's very bright, and the things he's saying is spot on. I don't know if that's the impetus for when things go belly up. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I think in general, looking at silver as wealth and not an investment is the most important thing.
Yeah.
It's about getting rich. It's about getting out of harm's way. The dollar has outlived its good graces, if you will, from its foreign creditors, and the rest of the world is looking to coalesce against the West. And I think when the switch flips, if you're not in something like gold and silver, you're dead. because I think the world is moving into a system that will be backed and denominated, or dominated rather, by commodities instead of debt instruments and failed promises. So look, I think you're doing I'm honored to be part of what you're doing because of this. I want to help any way that I can. Um, I think you're spot on. And yeah, maybe it is
Wow.
the energy problem in Europe that is what triggers things. And maybe it's something else that we don't even see.
Right.
But we're this close, I think. And I say that because in all the years I've done this, I've never seen the commercial banks net long in COMEX. And I've never seen the kind of withdrawals that we're seeing, to where there's the smallest short position by the commercial banks on COMEX in the history of the exchange, that there has never been a greater drawdown of metal ever, in terms of the daily drawdown on the COMEX, than we are seeing right now in the history of the exchange. Same thing true with the London Metals Exchange. Someone or some group of entities are literally bleeding dry the world's commodity exchanges. And at the same time, the most sophisticated players in the world are going net long in silver. They are prepared for this, and they're always going to be prepared before the rest of the world catches on. So yeah, do what the biggest banks in the world are doing. Accumulate silver, take possession of it, and get it out of harm's way while you still can. And yeah, don't wait until you see that
Right.
moment. That's the worst thing you can do.
Wow. Yep. Wow. It's an honor. You said it's an honor working with me. I could say the same times. I mean, like, just listening to you speak. I mean, there, like usually when I talk to people, like even with David Morgan, like everything he was saying, I could branch off of and I understood. But like when you start talking about the BRICS nations, I'm just that's way over my head. And I love being able to learn something new, because I've been doing this for so long. I pretty much know but when you talk about that stuff, that's something I could dive into that's deep, that's new, that I could try to understand. And I like that. And that's why probably a lot of people on my channel like hearing you talk, and like, when I have you on, is because you're saying stuff that nobody else is saying, that we haven't heard a million times, or that I haven't made a video about before. I think that's amazing.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate that very much.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I could agree. I've been talking about the dollar, lost 98% of its original purchasing. That's a literal number, not 99, not 97. It's lost 98%. And that's every fiat-based system's collapsed, last around a century. Even Federal Chairman Jerome Powell last year mentioned a currency coexisting or even replacing the dollar. I mean, Federal Chairman Jerome Powell said that. I saw a video
Yeah.
clip, like I don't know, man. It's
Yeah,
insane.
when he said that, I was blown away. He said there's room for more than one world reserve currency. He's acquiescing to the reality that this is coming. And
Yeah.
that's why Biden went to Saudi Arabia to beg them not to leave the BRICS nation, or not to leave, or to join the BRICS nations, and not abandon the dollar as world reserve. It's coming. And I think it's become very evident 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. Xi and Putin stood arm in arm and said, "We are now issuing a new world reserve currency representative of the BRICS nations." And you have Sergey, who I just read that article to you, saying that it's going to be backed by commodities. I don't know what more people need to hear to protect themselves. And too many people are waiting for the inevitable before they do this. They need to see it. What you've done and what others are doing, that is so admirable. What I try to do is to alert people to what real money is, and to protect yourself before this happens. You must be proactive. You must do this before it becomes obvious. But if you take a step back, it is obvious. It's just not obvious to the mainstream, because our media is pathetic and doesn't tell us anything that's important, but they'll tell us after it happens. And a lot of people will say, yeah, I saw this. I should have done something about it. Now is the time. Now is the time more than ever. It's not about getting wealthy. It's about obtaining real wealth. And
Yep.
that's the most important thing that I can convey.
Yep. That's what I mentioned. I made a video talking about, like, silver won't make you rich. Silver is what makes you rich or wealthy or whatever. Like it's not about who says that 1 ounce coin is worth what. That's irrelevant. The coin's value is the 1 ounce inside of it, not the price tag. Once you could really understand that, then everything will click. But until you understand it has nothing to do about comparing dollar terms. No amount of fake money can equal something of real money. You know, like once you really comprehend that, it won't, whether silver goes down to $5 or $50, it won't really, you're not looking at it from, you know, monetary or I guess fiat dollars. It's just, yeah. Man, I'm glad I had you on.
I'll look forward to coming back on every
Yeah,
Wednesday. We can talk
yeah,
what's going on, not only from a macro perspective, which, you know, is my forte and is something that I really enjoy, but a micro perspective. A good example of a micro perspective is Queen Elizabeth dying, and all of a sudden every coin that has her likeness on it going up in price and disappearing. And as a result, all the other coins start to go up in price. I think we're going to face a time where there's an awakening by the public. And when that awakening happens, I truly do believe that it will be at the expense of people being able to source product readily. You can see it just by how fragile the system is when something like that, when Queen Elizabeth passes, to what happens when there's a market collapse and everyone starts looking for a life raft. So getting in, accumulating on a cost averaging basis, buying it whenever you can, whether it's 2 ounces or 200 ounces or whatever it is, before the music stops is very, very important.
yeah,
And I think it's an incredibly fragile ecosystem in terms of supply. And her passing is just one example of why that is so true. So I'll come on every Wednesday. We'll talk about what's going on in the industry. We'll talk about prices. We'll talk some macro. And I really hope that your listeners will give us a try. Send us an email until our new website is done at info@milesfranklin. I promise you, we will do the very, very, very best we can to give you the very best price in the United States. And we'll make it a great experience. We'll answer all your questions. And if your listeners find silver items listed less expensive from a major U.S. retailer, let us know. We'll match it. And in most cases, we'll already have beaten it. But in any case, it's my promise to you, to your listeners, and out of appreciation for being able to be part of what you're doing and be part of the team. And, you know, I'm just excited to see where this takes us.
yeah. What he says. Send an email to info@milesfranklin.com. Let him know what you want. Let him know Silver Slayer sent you. That supports me for free as well. So yeah, I appreciate you for being on. I'm glad we could do this weekly thing. There's so many other things. And by the way, guys, if you want to ask Andy something for me to bring up, just send an email to me at info.silverslayer@gmail.com or info.silverslayer@gmail.com. Then you guys could ask Andy personally some things that maybe I don't bring up or you want to know, and I could bring them up in next week's video. So, you know, if you want to personally ask
That would
Andy
be
anything,
great. That
yeah,
would be great. I'm willing to do a
yeah,
live stream with you where we get questions real time,
yeah.
anytime you'd like. Let's get the questions answered and engage your listeners. It would be my honor, my pleasure, and I'll look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.
Yep.
And I just appreciate being here very much.
All right, we're going to wrap this video up here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.